Serious, what are some of the most common dark realities people choose to live in denial about? Slavery still exists in many places of the world. A restaurant we quite liked in the Bay Area was shut down by the feds because the owners had slaves. San Jose. Slavery. Alive and kicking in the 21st century. Edit to add, it was Mango Garden in San Jose. Owners had several other restaurants around the Bay Area. sf.eater.com. Georgia onion farms. Massive human trafficking modern slavery raid. Barely a blip on the news, even locally. Whoa. Can you please elaborate? This shit is nuts. Anyone can become disabled at any age at any time. When I was working with disabled adults, the company I worked for always emphasized this: we were only one life-changing event away from being in the shoes of our clients. One car accident, one stroke, one fall even just stress, psychological or physical, can set off an underlying condition, such as an autoimmune or genetic disease. Happened to me. When foster kids turn 18, they are tossed to the streets. This happened to my birth mom and is the reason she had to put me up for adoption. She got pregnant with me at 17, aged out, and got kicked out of her foster home before she gave birth. She had me and had nowhere to go, so we slept under the bleachers at the local high school. It was March, and I caught pneumonia. When she took me back to the hospital, they told her that if she didn't put me up for adoption, they would call CPS and I would likely be placed in foster care. Not wanting me to get stuck in the system like she did, she had been in foster care since she was 9, she put me up for adoption. I was adopted at 24 days old. I'm grateful for the financial opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise had if I hadn't been adopted. But the course of my entire life was changed by those people's decision to make a pregnant 17-year-old girl homeless. That's awful. If you don't mind me asking, how is your mother now? She wound up getting back on her feet eventually. She lives in her own house in Tennessee now, and had 4 children, all grown now, after me. She's got lots of grandbabies and is surrounded by family. That's amazing. I'm so glad she's doing well. Sometimes you're the problem. To quote Star Trek, it is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life. One accident or tragedy can completely flip your life upside down. Worked as a TSNA for a few years, and one patient's story always stuck with me. He was an elderly man who had gotten paralyzed and was in rehab trying to get whatever function he could get back. How did he get paralyzed? He went to pick up the newspaper in his driveway on a rainy day. Slipped while bending over and hit his head. That was it. Man got paralyzed just trying to grab the ducking newspaper. Life is horrifyingly fragile. I quit my job to follow my dream of becoming a fly fishing guide. 2 days later, someone T-boned me while running a red light and broke my neck. Doctors said I'd be paralyzed or dead if my head was at any other angle. I lost my dream because of that, but paralysis is my worst nightmare, and it was almost my reality. Sometimes you can't stop anything from ducking your life up. I hope that old man got some movement or something. Back at it, I was the only car on the road, and my light was green for 100 yards or so. This was in a city with heavy foliage, so the intersection is not visible until you get close. So I really don't give a fuck if you look both ways before you start from a stop at an intersection. Go pat yourself on the back somewhere else. That is scary and something I always worry about because too many people have no ducking idea what they are doing on the road, let alone any sort of random crap that can happen to suddenly make a good driver go off the road or something. BTW, I have no idea if that man ever got himself back. He wasn't doing much by the time he left, so I don't have the best outlook for him though. That our memories are subjective, full of errors and patches in order to maintain a balance in our understanding of events. Some memories are even false, and some memories are so different from other people present at the same events that actions, reactions and outcomes could be entirely opposite from each other. Humans assume that memories are correct all of the time, however they are prone to errors and even change over time. Almost all sexual and physical child abuse occurs in families. Grandpa is much more like to rape his granddaughters and grandsons than the weird stranger down the street. But Grandpa pays the bills, gives out inheritances, covers medical and pish bills. No one is going to come after him, or Uncle Bill, or Cousin George, or Brother Bob, or Daddy or Aunt Kim, or Cousin Susan or Mama. The least likely person in a family of abusers are the grandmothers, and they are simply too tired. Denial of this fact is all over society. It puts a smoke screen around the problem and makes it hard to fix. If news stories represented the actual statistics of abuse, almost all news stories about child abuse would be about momdad uncle priest babysitter. Extension: the public doesn't want to hear the fact their children are most at risk from their own family. They would rather hear about the evil stranger, so that's what all the news stories are about. This warping of reality leads to an illogical fear about child abductions and don't let their kids play outside or walk to school alone, where in reality almost all child abductions are perpetrated by the kids' own parents. I was 5 when it started. Only years later did I realize that my mother actually knew and didn't ducking care. I mean, she was in the room when my uncle laid on top of me, always touched me inappropriately, and stuff. How could they not see that? That's beyond horrible. I know what this is like. I hope you were able to recover. Yeah, I can look back and not be triggered, but I didn't know until recently that all of those repressed memories, and some not so repressed, are still up in this head shaking around. Like, I couldn't heal from that until I started to heal from the other abuse. But now I know, now I'm healing, and I feel better than I ever have. The memory of most people's existence will be completely forgotten sooner than you think, even by their own families. I can't even tell you the names of my great-great-grandparents. My father is big into genealogy. Had a massive tree into the 1600s at Spots. We got him the ancestry DNA test. Turns out all those years sitting at tables and traveling the country talking to relatives to figure it out was all in regards to a different family. His grandmother had an encounter with a dude passing through town. Rape? Adultery? Who knows? But that entire side of the tree was now wrong. I was glad that instead of being angry, my dad was more excited because now he had a whole new family to research. That's a very healthy way to handle that sort of news. I think most of the amateur genealogists I know would take this news with a similar attitude. Absolutely, 100% accurate. My dad was instantly researching my wife's family the moment we were engaged. It's a goddamn obsession. There could be kidnapping victims suffering from extreme abuse right down the road from you and you'd never know. I work in daycare. Teresa, lady I used to work with, who discovered something like this. She said she went to babysit for a neighbor who she didn't know had a baby. Was told not to go into the baby's room. Did anyway. And discovered an abused child. Who had apparently been with this lady for years. When my husband was in 2nd grade, one of his female classmates said, "Did you know that when you play with a penis it gets bigger and purple?" Being in 2nd grade, he didn't think twice of it, but it haunts him now from time to time. When I was in grade school, I used to help out in the special needs class from time to time and invite them to play with me during recess. One day one of the girls from the class stops me during a game of soccer and whispers in my ear, "My mom's boyfriend has sex with me sometimes." I was just a kid and didn't know much about sex other than it definitely wasn't for kids to talk about, so I just kinda gave her a weird look and went back to the game. I randomly remembered this encounter out of the blue one day as an adult, and now being older with a child of my own, I feel so sickened and upset that I didn't do anything. I know I was just a kid and didn't know better, but Jesus Christ, it breaks my heart to think about what that girl went through. I hope she's okay now wherever she is. You can only do what you can with what you know. But now that you know, don't think you should hide topics from kids because this shit is out there. If they're old enough to ask you, they're old enough to know. Adjust it to their age level and give them the little proper vocabulary and explanations. Because if you don't, then it's easier for someone to persuade, downplay, or normalize sexual or physical abuse. Exactly what I was going to say. This is why age-appropriate sex education is so important. Just because something lasts a long time, like a marriage, or a job, doesn't mean it's any good at all. There are lots of reasons that things don't end, some are very bad. Don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a long time making it. Aubrey de Graaff. Horrible things happen every day, and the ones we hear about are largely a reflection of self-interest. You can easily pick and choose the horrible stories you tell to paint a picture of the world. You can tell 100% true stories and still lie. I'd like to add that the medicalization of death in developed Western countries hides the true horrors of reality. We do a good job of not letting people see death or gore unless they specifically choose a profession that exposes them to it, which in turn induces severe mental strain on such people because there are so few others who they can talk to who will understand. Dead and dying people are kept hidden away in hospitals, And dying is seen more as a medical condition than a simple, and often grisly, fact of life. But I think if people understood the true fragility of life, and how horrible all but the most peaceful deaths can be, they would perhaps exercise greater caution and respect for the life and body they have. Humans can be incredibly strong, but as a rule are incredibly fragile. The fact that many of us live into old age is frankly a modern miracle. You can just be minding your business and all of a sudden a freak accident leaves you a suffering, dying mess of flesh.